100% of the future. Like, young people are 100% of the future, and there's no way to ignore that or downplay that. The young people who are living today are going to be the politicians of tomorrow. It's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And so if you have friends, which I did, who were involved in these sort of things, my journey, like my advocacy or change making journey, as some people refer to it as, started with Create Happy.
Kia ora e whakoutou, haere mai ki te kōrero, te ara whānui ki te rangi, mihi ngā tangata whenua o Aotearoa, I ko Oscar toku ingoa, and I'm here today with Voice of Aroha, Sahar and Lola. Kia ora e whakoroa.
Kia ora.
Thanks so much for your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We've got a lot to chat about.
We do.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Kia ora, ko Lola toku ingoa. My name is Lola. I'm 16 years old and I come from the beautiful Whanganui, but split my time between Whanganui and Te Whanganui Atara. I am the co-founder and CEO of Create Happy Media, which is the largest youth-operated media outlet in Aotearoa. And I also do a whole bunch of other volunteer mahi in youth development and youth leadership spaces.
I love that. You do so much mahi, and I'm keen to dive into all of it.
Awesome.
You said you set up Create Happy Media as the largest youth-led journalism platform?
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
How did you set that up?
So we started Create Happy on the floor of my parents' bedroom.
Excellent.
Over Zoom. It was the best Wi-Fi in the house, and I was just on the floor for vibes.
Absolutely. I mean, Apple got set up in his parents' bedroom or
great.
garage.
You know, I've got a bright future ahead of me then,
Absolutely.
clearly. And it was started with 3 other rangatahi who were all under the age of 14 at the time, and we...
I was 14. I was like, what?
That's really... We were all under the age of 14, and we had just gone through a photography program called Click Happy. And we were working with a mentor who her name is Mandy Lynn, and she's a master photographer. Working with her to talk about photography and youth wellbeing through her online program. Through conversations during that program, we started talking about youth voice and how we were misrepresented in the media and as young people, and also how we could share our voices as young people to the world. So I was sitting on my parents' bedroom floor on Zoom, and we were brainstorming ways to elevate youth voice in Aotearoa. There was like a podcast was thrown out, and then a magazine, and we were like, why don't we do both? And to do it all and create a magazine called Create Happy. And yeah, we kind of spiraled from there. It took us 3 months to put together our first edition.
Okay, that's a really quick turnaround.
Extremely, yeah. We had 8 writers who were working with us in the first round.
What sort of stories were you gathering?
In the beginning, it was very photography based because we had come from a photography program. So we were doing interviews with photographers. There was a whole photo section. We were talking about one of our journalists was an award-winning young photographer. She talked about her process through that, and then just some like general interest pieces about youth interests. I think we did some reviews on apps and books and things. So it started very small, and there were max 8 of us involved at the very beginning, and now we have over 60 young people working with us.
Wow.
Well, you're well on your way to becoming the next Apple.
Yes.
Just putting that out there.
And
that's huge.
yeah, I just want to ask, are they working voluntarily or just...
all volunteer run.
Oh, that's great.
So
It's
our
just
entire passion, exactly. Our entire Kaupapa is fueled by volunteers.
Wow. Yeah. And I heard you have produced 450 plus articles with these 60 youth voices.
Yes.
That's amazing output, especially from like such a young crew. Now that you guys have expanded to 60 contributors, has your topics changed, or are you still kind of doing current affairs things, or what youth are you interested in?
So it's actually been more than 60 journalists, been 150 that have come through our platform and written for us. And yeah, I guess our topics have changed, but they only changed right at the beginning, and since then it was kind of been a pretty smooth, clear vision. So yeah, started very photography based, and then after our first edition we were like, we need to pivot, and just like flipped it around, and we're like, okay, youth voice as a whole, what do young people want to say? And we split our editions into 4 themes, which happen every year. So we had innovation in June, Aroha in September, grit in December, and impact in March.
I love those topics.
And we cycle through those each year, and they have like descriptions of what they're about and like the general idea, and then any young person can pitch under one of those.
Yeah.
I love
That's
how
good structure.
open access that is, how inclusive and encouraging that is to get involved.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
The structure is really good. Like, how are you guys doing that? Yeah, that's great.
Wow. And you mentioned youth voice and like talk to some of the things as to why it's so important, but why is it something that we should really centralize and prioritize and like invest in? Because there's some debate about how much we include like youth in our like political decision making, or like how much do we act on their activism, you know what I mean? And like I think there's a lot that youth can offer, but what makes you want to platform a youth voice?
100% of the future. Like, young people are 100% of the future, and there's no way to ignore that or downplay that. The young people who are living today are going to be the politicians of tomorrow, the Steve Jobs of tomorrow,
It's you, by the way.
the people who are creating change in their communities. They're already doing that now, in fact. And I think when young people are involved in decision making, whether that's at a small scale or a large scale, you create opportunities for more unique ideas, diverse perspectives. Often they have fresh solutions, stuff that's based on latest technology or trends, or they have knowledge of what's going on right now in the innovation world. And so drawing on their perspectives is a really valuable thing to do.
I think it's really eloquently put, and I think that's super important and super accurate on so many levels. They are 100% of the future, for sure. They have context and skills and knowledge of now and what is happening now, and we need to include that. I think you include that really well in your, like, the 4 platforms that you can invite people to submit under. I think that, like, to invite people to write on innovation is that's a really empowering topic. There's so many things that I think we could innovate.
Yep.
That's amazing. That's so cool. I'm definitely keen to keep chatting to you about Create Happy, because I think that sounds like a long-term growing platform. I'm really excited to see how that goes.
Thank you.
Is that the only hat that you wear, or do you wear multiple hats?
I wear multiple hats. In fact, if I was wearing all the hats right now, it would be up on the ceiling and go like over through the roof.
Excellent. Have you seen, or do you know the book Bartholomew Cubbins? It's by Dr. Seuss.
No, I don't.
It's a book. It's quite a sweet book, but it's about like he's got a feather in his hat, and then like every time he takes his hat off or he loses the hat, he gets another hat with a bigger feather. You know what I mean? And like by the end of the book, he's got the craziest feather hat that the king wants his hat because he's like jealous. But I love that as a metaphor of like gaining experience and growing over time and like. Yeah, doing lots of different passion projects.
Especially you are 16 and you're just doing all that.
Yeah.
Imagine if you're 13, man. When you're 30 years old, what you will get, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
with double the amount of time
wow.
that you've already got now. Like you've
Double
already,
the amount of feathers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Triple?
And you've already maximized the time that you've had. I think that's only going to keep going. That's amazing. So what are some other hats that you wear?
So, I wear many, many hats. We can talk about some of them or all of them. I currently run co-executive director at Gen-Z Aotearoa.
Awesome.
Which is basically a network for rangatahi and their youth operator organisations to connect and grow and collaborate through a few different projects, like specific projects that we're doing. There's one called Koha for Kaupapa, which is a funding database that young people can go and look for funding opportunities to get money to do their ideas.
Does that kind of match project to philanthropist kind of
Yes,
vibe? Okay,
that
cool.
sort of thing.
Cool.
That's the end vision.
Wow.
At the moment, it's just a database that is a whole list of everything you could apply as a everything you could apply for as a young person.
Wow, that's super important resource to know where to apply your energy, because so many of those funds are like, you're not a legal entity, or you're, like,
exactly.
Which ones are open to youth, I think is really important to consolidate.
Yeah, so we have all those filters, like you
Great.
have to be a legal entity, or it's a personal application, or you
It's
can
on
apply under a
waste or
fund
whatever.
holder. Exactly. Yes, so that's one of our kaupapa that we're currently working on.
Koha for Kaupapa?
Koha for Kaupapa.
That's a great name.
Yes, that's one of our co-executive directors, Aditi, came up with that. She's awesome.
Excellent.
So Koha for Kaupapa, we are currently working with the one-person organisation called Events for Students.
Okay.
Which is an Instagram page that basically puts up opportunities for young people, and it's just like a weekly updated thing. We are, I don't know if you call it acquiring, because we're not like a business or anything, but
recruiting.
We're bringing that organisation under Gen-Z Aotearoa so that we can use the resources that we have to keep updating that. And again, sort of a database situation where you can just find opportunities to do stuff.
I love that you're connecting and consolidating the community resources, because that's one of the hardest things in this space.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I just have a question.
Yeah.
How did you learn how to apply, where to apply? Like, how did you get those information? Like, where did you go first?
Where did I go first? Well, I think it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And so if you have friends, which I did, who were involved in these sort of things, my journey, like my advocacy or changemaker journey, as some people refer to it as, started with Create Happy. And from there, when I had a provable impact almost, people were like, oh, how cool, you do this, and I'm going to introduce you to this person, and then this person. And then when I go and apply for things, then I have something to show
You've got
from
that
what
base
I've done.
foundation to build on.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. I think that's so well played on your behalf in terms of like building it in the first place, and then also having the initiative to keep growing it, and then also share it around. Because I think like it sounds like it's kind of gained enough momentum that you've met collaborators in the space that can help you grow either your expertise or connect with other opportunities. That's awesome. Would you want to expand like more on some of the stepping stones or tools or tricks that you've used along the way to help grow your platform and your momentum?
Yeah. Something we do at Create Happy, from a leadership perspective, something we do at Create Happy is every year we have a whole new cohort of editors.
Okay.
So no editorial board is the same. Sometimes we have editorial mentors, editors who stay on for a year or two. But the idea is that young people both get the chance to step up and lead in whatever capacity they may want to, but also it doesn't tie anyone into those leadership positions. So in a year's time, we can say, hey, your time is up as a leader at Create Happy, and maybe they've just taken on a new job, and they're like, oh, phew, that's great, because I actually don't have capacity for it anymore. So not being tied to a leadership position forevermore, which I often see young people experiencing in the youth space.
Kind of almost burdened with that leadership and not being able to move.
Not being able to move out of it. Yeah.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. I like that model that like everyone gets an opportunity for a year, like make the most of that opportunity, and then either other things. I think that's great for the participants. I think that's also great from a organization perspective, because then you get new voices and new priorities and new insight.
And it's not to say that they have to leave Create Happy altogether. They can just
transition to another role.
Or exactly, they could do social media for us, or they could help with editorial mentoring. There's no limit to what they can do, really. It's just about being able to move and be flexible in that role.
I think that's a fascinating example of like not burning the bridges, you know, like maintaining those relationships and including those relationships over time and growing those relationships. And I think that's a great example of how that can help grow everyone's mutual interests.
It also means that there isn't like one person isn't the all knowledge holder, and you're not going to the same person every time and you're like, oh, I have a question, what's the social media password? Because like 3 other people can answer that question because they've had experience doing it. So when you share knowledge, you create more power amongst you. And if you continue to move people along in that sharing of knowledge and bring new people in, you can have a much better time of leading an organization.
I think that's fascinating. That's so articulate too. I think like through that kind of network model, you avoid a key man risk where if that person is removed, then like major issue. You know what I mean? You're more resilient as a result that everyone knows or has access to the information and can connect to that. They're part of that networking community.
I have a question.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What challenges that you face during like doing this program?
Burnout.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that for me, it's just part of the process.
Unfortunately, it shouldn't be. But
I think that's interesting that there's ways to do it without burnout being a part of the process. But it is.
Yeah, I would love to talk to someone who has not experienced burnout while building something. That I really want to find that person and speak to them.
I think this is an interesting situation in New Zealand where like you can get opportunities and grow opportunities quite quickly, and then you can gain experience and professional development quite quickly, but I suppose that comes at the cost of you having to wear lots of hats and be the person to juggle lots of different projects and to kind of consolidate all of that experience over time. And I can see how sustaining that over time, there's a lot of people who've been working a lot, and burnout is a real part of it, especially in terms of like youth work or climate work or environmental advocacy.
Things with a emotional, heavy emotional baggage.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Burnout is like 100% going to happen at some point if you're not safeguarded in your organization or being paid or like all of these different aspects. And if you add up all those aspects, it's just costly for you or your organization. Like you can't actually have everything to prevent burnout all the time, which is unfortunate because if we could, we would.
You feel like you're running.
Exactly. Running.
Break.
No stop. No stopping. Yeah, exactly.
I think that's fascinating. Like the work is so much bigger than the worker. So like run towards the bits that you actually want to do, you know, like prioritize in that workload, because we can't do all of it ourselves.
No. Unfortunately, I would love to be able to do that.
Yeah. It sounds like you are doing a lot of it by yourself.
I feel sometimes it's hard to watch someone doing your work. Like it's just like I can't. I don't want to do it. It's just it's good to have this skill and like let people do what they can do and show their thing in their personality. But yes, it's hard to just like watch. I know.
Absolutely, like sharing and delegating that workload and collaborating that workload is a delicate art form in itself. Would you have any tips or tricks on collaborating with others and growing that platform? Because it sounds like you've scaled really quickly, Aroha.
Yeah, well, pretty quickly. I think learning how to delegate, like you just said, like delegation is key, especially when you're perceived as the top authority in an organization, even though I have been and am younger than a lot of the writers that I'm working with.
By like 20 years at least.
So the power dynamic is really different for me. But it is so important to learn how to communicate and delegate to people if you're in a position of power. And also learning how to just be friends with someone and like build the relationship and make sure that they know that you trust them and they also trust you back.
Yeah.
That's really well put. Absolutely. I think actively maintaining those relationships and building them is a really, really important part of it.
Has been so key to create Happy. I think if we didn't have the community. And when I say community, I don't just mean, we have like a network of like 50 young people and they're all connected.
80 people on Facebook.
Woo! Like community means friendships and collaboration and relationships. And we meet, the leadership team meets once a year in person, and we try to go to as many in-person events as possible, because when you're collaborating online, it makes things a whole lot harder. But community is built on active trust. So I
think you bring up such a fascinating point. Like, I think social media and online tools can help support this, but you can't do it exclusively on that. You need the face-to-face time. You need the shared experiences together and the building
You need the laughs
time.
and the memories and the bad karaoke sessions to build the relationships.
I don't think there are bad karaoke sessions.
Only good karaoke sessions. You haven't been at create happy karaoke sessions then.
It's the spirit in which you do it that counts, I think. Whether or not you hit the notes is secondary.
See, last year we played blind karaoke where you sit in front of the screen and then they play the music and then you have to remember the lyrics.
Okay. Do you know the song ahead of time?
No. You have to guess it. Horrendous. I did not get a single song. They played 7 of them.
I'd be useless.
I'm imagining myself doing karaoke, but not blind, with open eyes and reading lyrics spelling.
I think if I was blind or if I could see, I'd have the same result, They're equally, I'd know equally not enough songs. That's fascinating. But yeah, I fully agree that it's all of those times and all of those memories that helps to build the team to do the work you guys are trying to do. Because otherwise, I think there's a lot of people who are trying to apply their agency by themselves or don't know which lever to pull to apply their agency. But I think one of the key messages I've learned is that we don't have to do it all ourselves. We can link in with groups who are doing this mahi, who find collaborators, find friends in the space, learn from the people around you. There's ways that we can navigate this together.
And try not to reinvent the wheel as well. If there are groups that are already doing what you want to do, sometimes you just gotta join that organization and run with that, or create something new and exciting if that's what you want to do, if you want to build something. But replicating what's already been done is never going to be that effective, and unless you have a different angle that you're going at it, or a different vision, or a different why. Yeah, which is what we see often in climate spaces, is that, especially youth climate spaces, that people just are reinventing everything that's been done before for so many years. And that's amazing because that means there's heaps of passion and energy behind it, which is great, but often you're just replicating the efforts of many people across the motu, across time.
I think you hit on another really important thing where if we acknowledge which wheels we've already built, then we don't need to keep reinventing those wheels. I think there's opportunity to collaborate and join the people who are already doing that mahi. And then for youth and climate projects where funding is really strapped and really tight, I think it can help ease those competition pressures, because if we're doing the same thing, we can collaborate and pool our resources rather than having to compete for the same resources and get a smaller piece of the pie to do the same projects.
Yeah.
I think that's a big issue in New Zealand and Wellington, is that even if we are doing the same mahi, we're kind of in a competitive mindset, and it's we need to collaborate here.
Exactly.
I think that's so true.
Collaboration is key. You can't get anywhere without other people supporting you and guiding you.
Kia ora. I would fully agree.
Yeah.
I would fully agree.
I just want to ask something else. If you look at your journey from where you started and then now, I know you're growing a lot. Yes.
Full steam ahead.
Yeah. How will you describe this journey in short way?
The word exponential comes to mind.
Yep. Exponential. Just mental, insane. But in a good way.
Just so fast.
So fast and kind of breathtaking and wonderful and terrifying at the same time.
I can imagine, because you are young and you're doing all that. I don't know. I'm not sure. Do you feel like you grow up more faster than other kids who's not doing as you're doing right now?
See, I often get this question is how old are you? And then when I say 16, people are like,
I
thought you were 25.
Yeah.
I'm unfortunately not 25, and I do not have 3 kids, contrary to popular belief.
How often does that come up?
Very often. Extremely often. You would not believe it.
Wow.
Yeah. The oldest I've ever gotten was 35.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
asked me how many kids I had.
I
And
feel like that's a big
where
assumption.
my husband was. Yeah.
Big assumption. I wouldn't immediately go to, are you on your way to pick up your one of 3 kids? Like, how does that even come in? I think you do look much older than you are, though. I think that's true.
I do. I think I always say this to people. It's about the context which you meet me in, right? Like, I often am doing all of this, like, quite corporate and formal. I'm doing things in a corporate and formal way.
I think you're doing leadership in a lot of ways.
But often people meet me and I'm wearing a suit and I have my makeup on and like I'm like, oh, hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. And I'm like shaking hands, and people don't often see young people in these positions, so they're like, oh, that she can't be 16. There's no way.
She's finished uni already. Like,
but I've put myself in those situations, so even though I may look older and often act older than I actually am, it's about context. I don't always act like I'm 40 years old.
You're allowed to be a teenager for sure, and you're allowed to get to 25 as you get older.
Yeah. How are you finding a time for doing that? Because college is like until 3 and you finish, like you go back home, you change, you eat.
I don't go to school.
Yeah, you don't go to school.
No, I don't go to school.
That frees up a lot of time.
Yeah, it does.
Yes, I was literally like stressing how can you find this
I was like,
time?
there's not enough hours in the day here.
Yeah, so I don't go to school. I do correspondence school. Not that I do much of it, but I'm enrolled in correspondence school. Just hope my teachers aren't watching this.
I think you're learning the lessons where you want to learn the lessons.
Yes, I totally am. I am where I want to be in 5 years right now.
Great. That's why people think you're 25.
I've created the spaces that I want to be in, and I've done that intentionally so that I'm living my dream right now. And I don't think that school is actually going to advance that dream much further than where I already am. So I don't put a lot of my energy towards it. It's still an important thing, just so that I don't not know how to count or anything. But, you know, there's real world school, and that is what I'm doing. It's like budgeting and writing proposal documents.
Any of that.
And it doesn't, exactly. This is the stuff I'm going to have to know for the rest of my life.
Real world skills. I mean,
are we engaging kids to not go to school?
Exactly. Well, I think that's a really amazing example of like choosing the lessons that you want to learn. And we were also speaking earlier about the difference between like academics and work experience. And there's value to be learned in both spaces, absolutely.
For sure.
And I think a lot of it is field dependent as well. Like what you want to do with your time depends kind of which pathway you want to take and which skill sets you want to learn. But I think there's a lot to be learned from the workplace, from the people around you and the collaborators.
And just because you may prefer work experience over academics or academics over work experience or whatever doesn't mean that you like are any less valid for that.
Absolutely. Work is work.
Exactly. We need academics in this world. We need people who are on the ground doing the mahi. We need the strategic thinkers. We need the dreamers, the vision people. We need the people doing youth work. We need the teachers, the supermarket staff. Like
the healthcare.
Exactly. Everyone and everything you could ever think of has a place in this world at some point.
Absolutely.
So there's no reason to be worried about, oh, I don't have my NCA level 3 or I'm not in school. Like, that's okay because you can actually create change with what you've got. And
absolutely.
The best example of that would be Create Happy and what I've done. Like, I left school when I was had just turned 14 and pushed Create Happy into the world.
That's amazing.
And so I was able to do that because I wasn't in school and I wasn't constricted by 6 hours a day of stuff that I could do in 1 hour.
I really want to acknowledge your intentionality and your effort and like your drive and vision, because I think you've been able to see how to create happy, and then not only the vision but how to actually action it and propel it and grow it and use that as opportunities to get more experience elsewhere.
And take the risk to leave school and very bravely
Yeah.
doing that.
And the bravery straight up to enter into all of these spaces. Like, it sounds like you're competing in rooms where you would be the youngest by a significant margin. Actually, speaking of, it was great to see you at the Wellington Climate Leaders Hui. But yeah, like in all of those spaces.
I'm often in every single day, actually. Like over the last couple of weeks, I've been in spaces where I'm the youngest in the room. I've been in spaces where I'm the only woman in the room, and spaces where I'm the only dropout out of high school in the room, definitely. But it's important that you put yourself in those spaces, because once you're there, then other people can see you in those spaces and think, hey, maybe I could do that too.
Absolutely.
And then when that second person is in the room, that's when
change happens.
Change happens. Exactly.
I fully agree with that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just really want to acknowledge how you put yourself into those situations and like really intentionally, and also how you've like learned the lessons and allowed them to cross-pollinate in different areas of your life, you know, like learn lessons in this area that help this area as well, and kind of grow towards what you're actually interested in and like where you want to prioritize your effort. And I think there's so much information out there, but knowing what's important to you and how to piece the information into wider meaning and then further action, I think is a really important skill set to have. And it sounds like you've clocked onto that really early on. And I think you're just going to keep growing this the more time you've got, I think. I think that's an amazing skill set to have.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Should we ask about the future? What your plan? Where are you taking all that?
Big question.
What is your goal?
So I can talk maybe about Gen-Z Aotearoa and where we're taking that, because that's got a pretty big vision at the moment. So Gen-Z Aotearoa aims to become the largest youth network in Aotearoa that connects all of the young people and their youth operating organisations together, brings them into a room together at least once a year.
It's crazy how many people are not in the same room.
Baffles me. Like, the amount of change that we could create if we were just in the same room, just for like 3 hours even.
Absolutely.
Insane.
Yeah. I fully.
Yeah. So the goal there is to bring young people into the room, connect them with people who are doing similar things, and build roadmaps for collaboration that creates the National Youth Organisations Network.
I think you're well on your way to designing that, especially
very.
Create Happy as a foundation, and then
Absolutely.
Like all of the wider databases that you guys are collecting, like the Koha for Kaupapa one, and all of the youth engaged organisations in Aotearoa. You guys are really consolidating resources here.
I think the distinction between what we're doing and what's been done before is that we have been in the trenches as youth, running youth organisations. We know what it's like not to have funding. We know what it's like not to have the resources. We know what it's like not to have people supporting you. We know what it's like not to be able to get into those rooms that we were just talking about.
And how to forge it out of blood, sweat and tears. Exactly.
And so we know how to get young people to the places they want to be, and we have the connections to do that. The next step for Gen-Z Aotearoa is to create a youth talent agency that basically represents young people for speaking opportunities, engagement and consultation, advising to organisations, media opportunities, things like this. Organisations come to us and say, hey, we're looking for a young person to help us with a specific project. Do you have anyone? And we say, yes, we have 5 people. Yeah. And then we represent that young person through those stages so that they're safe and safeguarded and protected and feel empowered in that position, and also being paid.
Yes. I love that platform to connect projects to funding and to other opportunities, to connect skill sets to opportunities, or further training, or the community of people who are already doing that. Like, that's an amazing platform, and also to safeguard them through that process as well, so that they get paid and that they're not exploited and their time is acknowledged, all of that.
I see young people doing advising and consulting for organisations all the time for free or for a $50 Prezi card, and it's just not sustainable. Like, you wouldn't do that to someone who's 25 years old.
Yeah, or any other consultant.
At all. So why would you do it to a young person?
I think there's so much scope to include young people in all the systems that we build and include their expertise, include their perspective. It's
so important.
There's so many reasons why it's important. And I think you've done an amazing job to articulate why we should platform a youth voice and all the ways that you currently are platforming youth voice. I think a big tautoko for your mahi e wha. That's awesome.
Thank you.
We've got way more topics than we've got time for on the podcast, so I think we're quickly running towards the end of our time here. There's many other questions I'd love to chat to you about, and we'd love to have you back on the podcast, especially as Create Happy Media keeps growing, and Gen-Z Aotearoa keeps growing, and all of the projects keeps growing. I think they're like, I only see them keeping growing. The more that you build them, and the more that you collaborate and interlink all of those youth to all of those projects. Like, all the best for your mahi e wha. We'd be keen to keep in touch for sure.
Of course.
We like to end the podcast with the question of what is your message to youth people, like who listening
to all youth
to all youth who's listening to us now.
To all youth, know that your voice is your most important asset, and your voice belongs to you, and no one can ever take that away. And if you are using your voice for good and using it to create change, you're going to go far in life.
Lovely. That's beautiful.
Wise beyond your word, like your age, in a lot of ways. I think. That's it's been fascinating to talk to you on a lot of different levels.
Namahi. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, and definitely keen to find another time to kōrero further about all of these topics. I feel like this is just the tip of the iceberg.
All 6 pages of your notes.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly. More notes to come, absolutely.
Yeah, we have one more thing. That's traditional thing we do in the Voice of Aroha. The last guest left a question for you, and then you'll get the opportunity to write a question for our next guest. So and then you answer the question, and then we'll see. So the question is, what is one highlight from your life and why?
It sounds like there were many. This is a big question.
One highlight from my life and why. Just life so far, just anything at all.
You can relate it to your work if you'd like to do that, or anything.
Just anything, just highlight of everything.
Or your highlight of the week.
Of the week. I think it's really hard to sum up a highlight of my life thus far.
Sounds like it's been a really interesting highlight reel so far.
It has been a highlight reel. It also has been a low light reel. There's been many low lights.
Absolutely.
Along the way. So I feel like...
And when there's highlights and lowlights at the same time, those are
highlights and lowlights and midlights.
All of the lights.
And the lights are just like going different places,
And all of the time.
So it's hard to sum up.
What did you celebrate last time?
This week?
Yes, or just last celebration that you had.
Oh, last celebration I had.
That's an interesting question. Last celebration. That's a fun question.
Probably my youngest brother's birthday.
Excellent. I can see how you'd celebrate that.
Yeah, that was probably the last celebration.
Can we consider this as your highlight? I don't think so.
The highlight of my life was my 7-year-old brother's birthday.
Yeah, he's stoked to listen to that on the podcast. When he hears that, he's going to be so stoked.
Yeah. He's going to be like, as it should be.
Well, it sounds like there's been a lot of highlights, and long may that continue. We'd be keen to hear how they go as they come through. Thank you so much for your time.
Kia ora. Thank you for having me.
That was lovely. Thank you for coming.
And for our listeners, we'd be interested to hear what you think of the interview in the comments below. Thanks so much.